In this video for section 7.3, we're going to talk about the sampling distribution for proportions. We use the letter P to stand for the population proportion. And just like with sample means, we can make a probability distribution called the sampling distribution of sample proportions. P bar, P with the line over it. So looking at Theorem 5, it says regardless of the value of the population proportion P, except for when P is 0 and P is 1, which you don't really have to worry about that because that won't come up in this class. The sampling distribution for the sample proportion is approximately normally distributed with mu equal to P. So normally distributed means that we can use the normal distribution. And when we use the normal distribution, our mean is going to be the value of the population proportion given to us in the problem. We're going to calculate the standard deviation using this formula. It's square root of P times 1 minus P divided by N. So we're going to calculate this. You're going to need a calculator in order to calculate the standard deviation that we're going to enter into Minitab. So, again, use normal distribution in Minitab. Mean is the proportion and standard deviation is calculated using this formula. So let's look at this business application problem. Marketing managers at Online Coupons have determined that 15% of coupons go unused. What is the probability that out of 500 coupons sold for one particular retailer, 18% or more will go unused? So this 15% here is our value of P, and that's also going to be our mean. We're going to enter that as a decimal, 0.15. Now, to calculate our standard deviation, we're going to do P times 1 minus P divided by N. So, and then take the square root of all of that. So square root of 0.15 times 1 minus 0.15, or I could do that in my head. I know that that's 0.85. And then divide that all by N, which is 500. So I'm going to do this on my calculator at Desmos.com using the scientific calculator at Desmos.com. You can use any calculator that you like, really, but I think that this one works really well. So I've already typed it in here, 0.15 times 1 minus 0.15 divided by 500 and taking the square root of everything. And I can see that the answer is 0.0159687. I'm going to make sure that I leave at least 4 digits after the decimal point. I can leave more if I want to be super safe, but at least 4 would be 0.015. That would actually round up to 0.0160. So this is equal to 0.0160. That's what I'm going to use in Minitab. Now I want to know what is the probability that 18% or more, so the 500 was my N, 18% or more will go unused. So this is a little bit tricky because when they're giving you X values in problems that have to deal with proportions, they're going to be giving you them as percentages or decimals. So you really need to keep in mind what the question is asking. The question here is asking for the probability. What is the probability that? And so since the question is asking for the probability, this 18% or more is going to be an X value. And we're going to again convert it to a decimal, 0.18. And then since it's 18% or more, I'm going to do a right tail because 18% or more is going to be numbers on the right of 18% on the number line. So let's put this all into Minitab. Again, we're going to graph and probability distribution plot and view probability just like we've been doing. So my mean was 0.15, standard deviation 0.0160. Then I click on options. I'm doing a specified X value, right tail, and my X value is 0.18. Then I click OK. Here's my graph. Check to make sure I entered the correct mean and standard deviation. And I'm looking at the X value and the shaded area correctly. 18% or more has a probability of 0.03040. So I'm going to round that however the homework wants me to round. 4 digits after the decimal point would be 0.0304. And so thinking about what this means, a lot of times in the homework problems, you're asked to interpret your answers based on whether the probability is high or low. 3% is a pretty low probability. And so what that means is that if we had 500 coupons and 18% or more were unused, if the population mean was actually 15%, 18% or more would be pretty unlikely. And so that would probably indicate to me that there was something wrong with the coupons. If so many of the coupons were not being used, then maybe there's a glitch or an error in the system that's causing them to not work for my customers. So that might be something that you would need to look into if this was your business.